The Stand Comedy Club recently cancelled an appearance by Scottish National Party politician Joanna Cherry. Why would The Stand do this? It's owned by another SNP politician, Tommy Sheppard, the man who answers the question, what would you get if you crossed Susan Boyle with a toilet brush? Well, here's a little explainer. The SNP are split into two factions. On one side, you've got progressive gender ideologists like Nicola Sturgeon and her hand-picked successor Humza Yousaf, who want children to transition younger and anyone to be able to easily identify as whatever they want. If someone says they're a woman, and that's the end of it, you bigot. The most notorious example of this was the male rapist Isla Bryson, who started identifying as a woman during the trial. What a beautiful lady! And was then sent to a female prison. I'm not opposed to sending people like Isla Bryson to women's prisons, by the way. I think it would make great television. And isn't prison supposed to be a deterrent? These women might think twice about shoplifting some lipstick if they know they're going to be shacked up with a predator. The other faction in the SNP is feminists like Joanna Cherry and Ash Regan, who want women's rights and spaces protected and don't want male rapists in women's prisons. They're literally discriminating against rapists. Does that make them rapistist? Cherry used to be on the front bench of the SNP and was a rival of Sturgeon's until Sturgeon used accusations of transphobia to depose Cherry to the back benches. It's common for accusations of transphobia to be weaponised like this, and Cherry, who's also a human rights lawyer, honestly, her evil knows no bounds, has been involved in defending some of the people accused of transphobia. She represented political dissident Marion Miller, who's arrested for hate crimes, including posting a picture of a suffragette ribbon. This was deemed to be transphobic violence and hate because it could be perceived to be a noose. There's no way it can be perceived to be a noose. It's definitely a suffragette ribbon. As I mentioned, the Stand Comedy Clubs are owned by SNP politician Tommy Sheppard, who also owns the least convincing dye job since Rudy Giuliani's hair melted down his face. So comedians like me who criticise the SNP's gender ideology are banned from performing at its comedy clubs. And comedians who want to get ahead in Scotland have to lick the SNP's boots by attacking the Tories. It's a Putin-esque way of stifling criticism of the SNP and instigating criticism of their enemies and making it look like it's authentic opinion from truth-telling comedians rather than snivelling worms grovelling on their knees for a chance to work. Anyway, there were rumblings of discontent about Joanna Cherry's appearance. Bethany Black is a trans woman, although you'd never guess she wasn't born female with the amount of moaning she does. She said she was pulling her show from the Stand in Glasgow because they were platforming Joanna Cherry, even though it was in a completely different city at a completely different time. I also like to pretend I'm cancelling shows for grandiose reasons when I haven't sold enough tickets. The Stand then pulled Joanna Cherry's show, saying they had to because staff had complained. I've no doubt that staff at the Stand did complain about Cherry. Blue-haired angry youths complain about everything. The correct response is to tell them to get bent. The minimum wage teenage peons who check your ticket stubs should not be the arbiters of culture. Apparently staff felt unsafe. This is how stuff gets cancelled now. Instead of saying you disagree, you can just say you feel unsafe, and then it's a health and safety issue and must be shut down. But the idea that Joanna Cherry is a serious safety risk is laughable. She's not flammable. She's a middle-aged lesbian human rights lawyer, not a lion tamer. She's not going to rage out and start flipping tables and punching staff, unfortunately. And staff at the Stand were happy to work alongside a registered sex offender. Safety seems to be pretty subjective depending on people's political opinions. The move by the Stand to cancel Cherry was celebrated by leftists. The Unite Hospitality Union said, "We are pleased that the Stand Comedy Club have listened to the legitimate and serious concerns of our members and their workers and acted accordingly." Lefty unions applauding the silencing of lesbians is a plot twist I didn't see coming from the 90s. An independence group called Ungagged supported the gagging of Cherry, saying hate has no place at our festivals, but couldn't specify exactly what she'd said that was hateful. But there's some good news. It looks like the Stand have violated the Equality Act, under which gender-critical views are protected. There's precedent for this. Maya Forstater, Twisted Forstater, won her case after being fired for saying people can't change their biological sex. You can't change your biological sex, by the way. It's very fiddly to go into your cells and change your chromosomes one by one. And another Glasgow venue was ordered to pay an American preacher 100 grand when they cancelled his appearance, which breached his rights to religious freedom under the Equality Act. 100 grand! And Joanna Cherry's a lawyer, so she can do it herself. Still, Tommy can tap up the SNP for another COVID grant to cover it. But this goes deeper than the ongoing gender battle. This is about the factional war in the SNP who are disintegrating in front of us. The Scottish Parliament should be taken into special measures, and politicians should not own comedy clubs. If you're in Scotland and you want to support comedy that isn't in the pocket of corrupt authoritarian politicians, there are other clubs to visit, and you can support me on Patreon and get access to exclusive content and Patreon-only Zoom shows where I try out material that you'll definitely never see at the stand. I've got one this Sunday coming up, there's a link below. Anyway, thanks for listening, I've been Leo Kears, bye, bye bye.